Let's pray together. Father, thank you for the freedom and the privilege that we can study your words in public, while many of our brothers and sisters in the world, they are forced to do it secretly. We ask that you give us the desire to truly know you and praise your name with our heart and wholeheartedly. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, today we are going to talk about Psalm 77, which in your study journal you call it worship while suffering, right? Because it is a lament. With lament, actually, until probably at the early 20th century, scholars begin to recognize there are some patterns in a lot of psalms that include those settling things. So they think there's a pattern. And with the pattern, today I'm going to introduce you the pattern, but in a way that is more easy to remember. So I purposely put things like this. You can see in a lot of psalms. Like example, I give you reference for Psalm 3 and Psalm 13. And there are so other psalms you can find they have these elements. First, you will find at least 3 pronouns. I say 3 pronouns is when you read those laments, you will see the pronoun is you, I, and they. And they are related because they are also 3 verbs. You will see here, save, and in the sense of punish. Not exactly the words, but it's in that sense or in that language. And I say they are connected together. Like here, I will do you. You aren't paying attention. You call to God. That cry out. We study Psalm 77. It says cry out twice. He basically is doing prayer. So he prayed to God and seems to talk to God. I'm in a trouble, I'm hurting, and you aren't paying attention. So please, Lord, hear me. And then you will hear that he will have a description about the psalmist, the writer, his situation, his suffering, and then he has that description. And I will just say I'm hurting, and then he asks, he gives petition, that means save me. And then sometimes he will go to his enemy. Not all the time, but most of the lament you will see, they talk about enemy. And basically the language he's using is like he asking God, he's accused his enemy, and then ask God to punish them. So these are the basic elements you can find in laments. But not necessarily you will see all these patterns. They are not bound to all the patterns, but you will see a few of them or even all of them. That's just the pattern in laments. Okay, so in lament, the pattern also, I just summarized in that 3 pronoun and 3 verb. But there also the element in all the laments. If I put them like this, you first will have introductory cry. And again, the order and the pattern is not necessarily appear in all the psalms. But they'll have something like this. You have the introductory cry. And then the lament will have the pronouns, just like I say. And then the confession of trust. And then the petition, the prayer in the prayer part. And the last part usually is a form of praise. And when you see this pattern, actually logically it makes sense to you. When you are in a difficult situation, you are suffering, of course, you cry out to God. And then you will talk about, I'm hurting and I want God to pay attention. And you need to care because you ask God, say, you show me your care. And then you accuse your enemy. Sometimes the enemy is the situation. Doesn't have to be you. It's sometimes a situation. Like today, if we apply to our situation today, see if, for example, if some of your friends or people you know, they have cancer, then the enemy will be what? Will be the bad cell. You know, the cancer cell eating up their good cell, right? So in that situation, those bad cells will be the enemy. Then you will cry out to God to destroy all those bad cells. So that's the situation here. So with these patterns in mind, it really helps you to understand the power and better understand what the lament is saying. But after we study here, we'll talk about the meaning and the purpose of lament. Okay, so first, when we look at Psalm 77, when we turn to Psalm 77, you see that I can easily recognize there are 4 movements. According to, there's a music notation. We talked about it last week. You see Selah. When you see Selah, you know that music notation really help us to define, to feel strongly. So now we have 4 movements here, and each movement, each part ending with that Selah, the music notation. So the first section, from verse 1 to verse 3, you see verse 1 repeat 2 times, cry out. So that's the introductory cry to God. And then he's groaning and cry to God. And then you see, and then we move to verse 2. He's talking about what? He's talking about he's praying. And then at night, he said at night, I stretch out on some translations say unceasing hand, means he's consistent. He's stretched out his hand to pray the whole night. That means he's just eagerly, and he want to wait for, and he want to ask God to help. So you can see that mood in verse 1 to 3. So it's a mood. And then verse 4 to 9, which is the second part. What the second part, you see, what's the point? Is he think about God's character. When he say, I remember you, God, and I groan. Isn't that strange, a sentence? You say you remember God, and then what did you feel? You groan, you sigh, and you cry. How can you remember God and you groan? Because this is, as we talked about last time, we read Psalms as it's a poetry, because it's a poetry language. So poetry, the character of the poetry is use just a little word to express the meaning. Because they use a little words, so they want to express the meaning. You have to try to, like a puzzling, what he want to say just in these few words, but want to have that his point out. So when he say, I remember, and then I groan, he remember what? That's what we need to think. But from the Bible and a lot of Psalms, we know that God's character. He remember he's in a suffering, so he God is gracious and God is compassion, but God doesn't do any action now and doesn't help now, so that's why he groaned. So he said, I remember God and then I groaned. It's because he didn't feel all the words in between, but you know the meaning of the psalm because from the psalmist, that's the poetry. And so he think about God's character, but it doesn't fit his situation. Because it seems God, if God is merciful and gracious, then why the believer, that the psalmist will end up in this kind of difficult situation? That he cannot think of, he's puzzling. So that's why he cried. And then when you see verse 5, he said, emphasize the former days and the years of the long ago. And we know, we can see this is parallel season. And when you see parallel season, it's basically the idea of repeating. So if it's repeating, means it's very important. Otherwise, it wouldn't repeat it. And then how come we talk about the older days? It means the past. When he think about the past, so first he think about who God is, and then he think about what he has done and what he did in the past. So from his understanding and his knowledge about God, and also he remembered God, what God has helped him before in the past. Then that's his the base of his complaint, right? When he complains, he needs to say something to bring his case to God. And so based on his understanding and his personal, intimate knowledge of God, so he can say that. He said, God, I know who you are, and I know what you have done in the past. So it is time you should help me. That is the we can say according to the knowledge of God. And then we move to last part. I'll explain more later, but I want you to know the order and his thinking, the logical is like this. And then you move to last part, 10 to 15. This is talking about God's, also is remember God. But here, he especially say remember. You see that he repeats 2 times remember, and also meditate. So there are 2 key words in this whole passage. So remember and meditate. Through his deeper thinking, he think over and over, and then something happens. His faith, that is like you exercise the muscle of your faith. When you think about who God is and what God has done, you now know that God is worthy of our trust. So you see that he become, you see suddenly the mood change from last part, 16 to 20. You see that he is praising God. How he prays? He is praising God's mighty act through his creation. And he say the water. And remember, we are reading the ancient Israel Psalms, because they are at the time that their neighbor countries are all those worship Baals. And in Canaanite, for Canaanites, they believe their idol, that idol god Baal, is the god of storm. So that Baal in control of the storming, the water, and those things. So because they know that, the psalmists say, no, not the Baal control the water, has the power, rule over the water. It's our Lord has the power, rule over water, right? That's why of course, today we know the same. While a lot of people think there are some mysterious power, we know that only God has the power. So that's you can see that through his description and the praising, you know he's affirming that God is in control. He has all the power. So even in the midst of his anguish growing, he can trust God. So all the Psalms, from the pattern, and see, today we study the Psalm 77, it encourages us that in whatever, no matter what happens in our life, we can always trust God. We will just like groan, we will cry and groan just like the psalmist here in Psalm 77 and cry out to God. But when we ponder and think about what we know about God, at the end, we'll come up with our praise to God. That's basically what the lament will do. And also in lament, you see if they can cry out. It's true. When you study lament, you find one thing. Sometimes they like Psalm 13. Can we go to quickly go to Psalm 13? It helps us. How come they cry like this? How long? I think it says basically say. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? He said 4 times how long. It's like it's like a complaint. You say, oh, how dare you complain to God? But we have to know, a lot of laments, when they cry out to God, as I have emphasized, is based on their intimate knowledge about God. You see, if we are just normal friends, I say, how are you doing? Hey, hi, you are fine, and then that's all. I won't say more. But if I know her intimately, then I will tell her about the situation, and even a lot of things happen around me, even if bad things, I will tell her frankly. And I will ask her, I will expect that she can encourage me, right? So that's the same situation in laments. You see those writers, how can they emotionally honest to God in that in the depth of you see in the sentence expressed, because they have that they know God intimately, and that's very important for us when we read the Psalm. And also that is because, and another thing, second point. First point is they know God in personal, they have the personal intimacy with God. They know God personally. Second point is they trust God. And because they trust God, so they know God cares, and God will help them. And of course, they know God has the power to do it. So that's why they will bring their case to God, and whatever situation that cry out to God. Okay, so at Psalm 77 from 1 to 3, we see there are a few words I highlight. verse 1 and 2, that's I highlight because they're parallel and repeating. And also, you see it's interesting. At verse 2, my soul, and verse 3, my spirit. You see he repeating. It's kind of like emphasized here. When he moved to the second movement, you see he ending with my heart and my spirit. So I highlight that when you read it, if you pay attention on these words, then you can feel and even feel the moods of the psalmist and his feeling. Because poetry is the language of experience. Honestly, for appreciate some, the older, I mean, if you are older, you can understand you have the experience. You can understand and appreciate sound much more, I mean, in a deeper sense than the younger one. So I remember I used to have a professor when he talked to us about the sound. He just look at the classroom and he said, "You are too young." That is because most of people sitting in the classroom is too young to understand the experience. Experience really need the time, right, to go to those experience. So, yeah, and the other important thing talking about the psalm is in this poetry language, we talk about the figurative language. So you see in this psalm we have some figurative language, of course. He literally say, "You hold my eyelid open." And instead of saying that I cannot sleep because of I'm thinking of God and I'm thinking of all the sorrows, but he didn't say that. But will God really use his hand and then keep your eye open? No. But he used this, we call that anthropomorphism, which is the figurative language. Just basic actually is a figure of speech which take a human characters and apply it to God. And it actually is, sometimes God is brought down to the level of man and give human characteristic. That's the way they do it. In order to that you understand, to describe God and to that you understand. There are a few more. I just pick few sentences there. If you read other psalms and even in Psalm 77. Okay, so the purpose of figures of speech also is very important. Why he doesn't just stay plainly and say it that everybody know, but he used a lot of actual words. Those are figurative language because he want to give special emphasis. Because when Jesus gave the story talking about parable. Okay. Use the imagery of the vine and the branch. Basically, Jesus is what? Is emphasize the unity with himself. That is talking about the personal intimacy with Jesus. Your life has to unite it with Jesus. Otherwise, if we are not in Christ, only in Christ we have the salvation. Only in Christ we can be sanctified. So when Jesus used that imagery, that is to emphasize and also to give you, to understand the picture, then you will have a more clear understanding. And also, when you see that he want you to pay attention on what he says. So it works the same in some. You see the figurative language has that power too. And also, of course, we remember. Just like I say, when Jesus used the metaphor, we remember it very clear. Okay, so from 7 to 9. I highlight forever, no more, forever, forevermore. You see here's and a lot of end up with question. So this is his question, and he emphasized forever. Of course, when he emphasized forever and with question, he's asking that has God forgotten to be gracious? That is his probably his point. If God will forget if God forget things, then what are we going to do? Then we have no hope. That's basic his meaning. So he used a lot of question, which is also question is an expression of that he's doubting too. But with this doubting, he will move, and this is he's basically showing his struggle. When we are struggle, of course, we have a lot of questions in our mind. So that's why you come to this part with a lot of questions and use forever. And of course, when he's forever, he's just exaggerate. The expression is exaggerate. Okay. Okay, there's a translation difference. If you check verse 10, you see a different translation. But I would think NET, they transfer the meaning, I think, more clear here. This passage I quote from King James Version, but other translation they omit this part, my anguish or my suffering. Basically, there's a words at the verse 10. It says hala. It just means pain. So some translation they didn't translate, but I think the translation would fit, like NET say, I'm sickened by the sword, that the suffering one might become inactive. So that from the context we see just the previous passage when he used a lot of questions and God, will you forget and then forever, and those strongly emphasize that question when he think over and over, and then he realized, no, this is not the God I know. The God I know is merciful, is gracious, and abounding in love. So when he think of that, then he say, this is my anguish, or this is my weak, this is my weakness, that I cannot think that way. Because he will remember the ear of the right hand of the Most High. When you talk about the right hand of the Most High, this language here is very similar to Exodus 15. You see Exodus 15, in Moses, when they sing praise to God for the deliverance that God delivered them from the slavery in Egypt, Moses make a song that's in Exodus 15. And we can say Exodus 15, that song is the first song in the Bible. And in that Exodus 15, let me see, it's in verse 6. I think it's in verse 6. You can see that similar language. Moses is saying that God's right hand, yeah. At Exodus 15, verse 6, he said, your right hand, Lord, shatter the enemy. And then let's go to verse 16, by the power of your arm. So you see these two, the right hand and the arm of God, that is describing God's salvation. So here, he's also emphasized on God's salvation. Okay, so we move to verse 13 and 15. From verse 10 to 15, I basically separate them because they are summarized to two parts. So the other second part is talking about that God is, I think the translation, the verse 13, your way, O God, is holy, or is in the holiness would be more fit. Because here, the second, maybe called the second part of verse 13, who is so great, a God as our God, means God is what? Is incomparable. Is incomparable. So because he says incomparable, it's also the sense in holiness. When we say God is holy, holy, the basic meaning is pure, but it also has the meaning in the sense of separated. And if you say God is separated, means he is the other. There's no one like him. That's the meaning. So there's no one like God. So he's incomparable. So based on 13 of the second part, 13b, so we will say the first part should be God is holy. And because he is holy, no one can be like him. And then he's talking about that God has done so many wonders, praising God, think about God, how his power, his wonderful deeds. And he also used with your arm. That's what we see. It's a salvation language. Redeem your people, and that's connect. So he think about God's salvation, and when he says the sons of Jacob and Joseph, because Joseph, although he's not the firstborn son, but he gets the double portion of the blessing. So in a sense, he is in in some way he became the firstborn son. So the sons of Jacob and his firstborn son means his descendant. So it actually says the whole Israelites. It's talking about the Israel, the nation of Israel. So you see this Psalm 77, this Lamed is use a lot of singular pronoun and I, but he is talking when he's his sadness actually when you think about the nation. You can see when you read it, you feel what his anguish is about the nation, not about his personal things. He said that I think from what he expressed is that the whole nation is in a great suffering and God hasn't helped, so that's why he cried out. And the last part, talk about water, and we already say in the introduction why he used the water, that image is compared to those idols, and he used the nature to show you that basically praising God's power in over creation. Okay, and verse 19. Your way was in the sea, your path in the great water is parallel. And your footsteps were not known. Even we cannot see God's wonderful deeds or see his power. But God is working. And he know that, make sure he's affirming that you cannot see God's power. It's invisible, but God indeed, his wonderful deeds through the creation and through everything and over their enemy. And also, the last part is talking about God is taking care of his people. So this is like we say, the affirmation. You will see a lot of lament. They're ending with a fall of praise or an affirmation of that trusting to God. So he said that he think about the past, that God has been leading his people through the leader that he chose, like a shepherd. So he will continually do this. Just like we say Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So of course, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So when the writer talking about the past and what God has done before, he's again emphasize that see, he has done this, he will do this now, and in the future, he will keep doing it. That's what he's emphasized. Okay.
Verse 18, the voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind, and how pure was the heaven?
In heaven, in the whirlwind. Because he's talking about that God's power is prevail, and the arrow is lightning. So I think I use the whirlwind, I like it. But it's even they changed it in the heaven, I think it's okay. I didn't check that word. Can you give me 18? Let me see that 18. 77, 18. We can compare the translation.
Okay. KJV says heaven and KJV says whirlwind. And I think everything else.
A lot of place in whirlwind.
One more
in the wind, in the heaven, in the whirlwind. Yeah, a lot of whirlwind. But I can see that word.
We're looking at Psalm 77.
Yeah. Yeah, it does has the sense of the worrying. I will agree that with the worrying. Because you can see that here it says it's a more or less vertical column of air whirling. So
They say heaven, if they translate it into heaven because a whirlwind is like in the air.
yeah, basics the same. Do you know that we have more laments than probably talking about the types of psalm? We have more laments than any other type of psalms. Actually, we have about 55 laments in psalms.
Wow.
So there's about 1/3, more than 1/3 of laments of psalms, right? If you pay attention when you read laments and look at those pronouns that, as I mentioned, the 3 pronouns, I, you, they. I is talk about your situation, how you suffer and I'm hurting, and then you adjust to God and emphasize on that God's character, because based on His character and what He has done, that you bring your case to God, and then you accuse your enemy and want God to punish them, to bring justice. So that is basically the lament. But you look at those patterns, if you can find them, then that really help you to see the power of the lament. And the lament emphasize actually it has expressed. You can feel that, you can see the expression of complaint and distress, and also a powerful confession of trust. You can read those things in lament. And also one word I need to emphasize in Psalm 77, there's a hesed. Where?
Oh, loving kindness.
Philip, I think you know where the hesed there is. Oh, unfailing love, verse 8. That Hebrew hesed, almost in Psalms, that is a very strong, actually through the whole Bible, especially in Old Testament, that unfailing love, that Hebrew word hesed, it has a lot of meaning. It has the meaning that you can translate mercy, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, loyal love. Oh, sorry. So, also in this psalm, you see when he bring his case to God and complain, and also ask God, and he think about God. One of God's character very important is that his loyal love. That when he talk about loyal love, he also mentioned his promise in verse 8. So the loyal love based on God's covenant with his people. He will not forgive his promise with his people, Israel, the nation of Israel. So because of their strong faith on that, they ask God for help. And okay, when they ask God and talk about enemy, ask God to punish their enemy, there's also a very strong statement you can see in a lot of lament. They are basically say, God, your reputation is at stake. Did I touch this? Oh, okay. When he can accuse the enemy, it's because they believe that the enemy, they can say, hey, see, your God is not greater than my God, so my God help me and I'm winning. So in that kind of understanding, to know that those are the writer, they are basically say, oh, they honor God, and they say, God, your reputation is at stake if you don't reach down and deal with my issue. That's basically why they cry to God. Okay, I think we cover a lot about the psalm. And also, at the last part, at the end of the lament, there's a fall. Usually you find a lot of lament, they ending with praise, and we call a fall of praise. It's like I fall to praise God. basically says, oh God, one day I know that you will have brought me through this, and I just hope that it's sooner. And when you have brought me through this situation, I will tell your people with what you have done. It's this kind of concept, so they make their vow. And just like I say that in Old Testament, there's no one single word that we say thank you. It's just basically praise, a lot of praise. So, of course, you pray and ask God's help, and you believe that God will help you. And when you have experienced that God has brought you through this difficult time, you give praise to God, and you say, I'm going to your temple. I'm going to tell every people about you, because about what you have done. And that is in the sense of thank you, God. Okay, any question? We can, I think, do we have time to go to Psalm 98?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Not enough, but I can at least go through the idea of those royal songs. And then we can talk about it tomorrow.
Okay. So we also have a class on Monday after museum, so we just kind of continue on with the Psalms. If you missed this Monday's, the recording is sent out in an email, and there's also notes that are sent out. So if you don't have time to watch the recording, go read the notes. The shorter version.
Okay. So no questions so far, right? Okay. When I draw this, I want you to think about through the Revelation, the whole Bible tells us the human history is going to one direction, right? Not like if you read the world history, I mean the secular thing, they are not in this direction. They are like a circular. It's make a circle that human life and go round and round and then die and then another human come out just like that. There's no end. But that's not what we know from the Bible. The Bible tells us that history is going to that direction. And because from that direction, also from the beginning, the Genesis, we know the creation and what happened at chapter 3, that human sin, and then we came to this stage of fall. And because of the fall, and actually emphasize a lot of things. You see, when Adam and Eve, they sin, then of course, the generation after generation is in a situation that sin will not end. Think about when Noah, when God, I think chapter 6, right? After the flood, what happened to Noah's family? And what happened after that? You see the Tower of Babel and sin human, the whole human creation, they sin against God. Right? And so sin is never ending. So we can see that Genesis has that show us that in human history. And then from chapter 12, that the beginning of the history of Israel nation. But there's a parallel. I'm talking about in the whole Bible. You see, when you read the whole Bible, you see a parallelism also in the history. From the history of Israel nation and to us, our New Testament. When we were, when Jesus come and then we are saved and then now we are in waiting for Jesus, then God asks us what? Be faithful, right? That is the same asking that God called for His Israel nation. Be faithful. So He give them what? We call the holiness code. Basically, the law. The law is the direction to tell His people, follow me. And do not turn left or right, just follow me and be faithful to me. But you can see the whole nation, they corrupt because they worship the idol with their neighbors, which is easier, it's feasible, right? And it's easy for them. They think they don't know the meaning of the law, truly. I mean, they are remnant. We'll see that. But I mean, most of the Israelite nation. So it's parallelism. But my point is the Psalm. When Jesus at Luke 24, you all remember that verse. Jesus talking to that two men. They are going back to their hometown, and then Jesus say, the Psalms the prophet in the Psalms talk about me. So when we read Psalm, we also from the aspect of prophecy. So there are a lot of prophecy in Psalm. There are messianic psalms and royal psalm. And today when I draw this for a royal psalm, I want to tell you in a lot of royal psalm, it's bring us to the last part, that God reigns. So at the beginning, it already said God will reign. And then at the end, it shall clap. It says, it also used the imagery. And that's all clap because God reigns. It's just like Isaiah 52. It talk about God will reign. So it's the prophecy fulfilled. So in this kind of psalm, I'll give you few that psalm. You can see like Psalm 98. We will talk about it. It give you the statement that our God reigns, and it says God, our God reigns. I mean God reigned before, today, and in the future. God reigns. It's a statement. And then we also in Psalm, we see like Psalm 10 and Psalm 14. It talk about evil men. And it talk about the current situation. There are evil ones that we cannot deny. The whole world is still growing. So it basically say, where is our king? If God reigns, then where is our king? And then you come to the next stage. The writer, the psalmist is calling that here comes the king. Then you can see that, like you can read that Psalm 2, Psalm 2, Psalm 110, which is also a messianic psalm, and Psalm 97. These are telling that God, Jesus' second coming, talking about Jesus' second coming, and talking about that God will bring judgment. And then come to the last part is that heaven ring with sounds. It's the clapping image that God finally will come. It's talking about when Jesus' second come, everything will be restored, and that will have a joyful sound. So that is, you can see that those kind of idea in Psalm 47. So I give you this psalm, and then you put together, then you will see the story. It's talking about the psalm already has the prophecy from the statement that tell you God reigns, and then to the lament that where is our king, and then it has the expectation that king will come, and finally when king come, then everything will be restored. You can see in a lot of psalm that I put together has that imagery. And even the book of Psalm, Psalm 1, we talk about 5 books in Psalm. Book 1 to 3 has a lot of lament. But book 4 and 5, last 2 books of lament, two books of Psalms has a lot of praising Psalms. So that is also the story we are. And it's interesting, you know sign language. If you know sign language, I was told the sign language for praising is what? Yeah, like this, right?
I think this is this.
I was told from a professor, he said actually clapping hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's clapping hand. And we can see that we'll read that when we go to Psalm 98 tomorrow. He used a lot of this kind of motion in describing this kind of motion, the river clap and human clap. Everybody just clap, is praising God. You see that shout for joy, those kind of things talking about that in the royal psalm. So the royal psalm, the theme or the main point of royal psalm, which we'll study at Psalm 98, is talking about God reigns. Okay.
Oh yeah, the sign, the ASL for praise is actually clapping hands. Oh really? Mm-hmm. It's like this. Or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Psalm 93 to Psalm 99, this series of psalms, they are all a category to royal psalm. So you read through it, you see this from Psalm 93 to Psalm 99. Yeah, you find those. Those statements I just talked about, and then those the sequential. You can see those things from Psalm 93 to 99. So finally, we have 5 minutes. I can talk about the concept of worship as I asked the question last year. Why do we worship God, right? Basically, we have to know what is worship. worship, I can find these words, the meaning of worship in Old Testament. When you check the meaning, it has a few meaning. Most of the time they translate as bow down or bow or worship, but it has the meaning of it, and also yeah, I think most of it is bow down. Especially you see Genesis 24, Abraham's servant, he was sent out to find the bride for Isaac, and when he find it, he bowed down and worshiped God. So bow down. Why you bow down? You have from his story you see the basic idea is a response. He responds. He knows that God hears his prayer and God is guiding him, so that's why he can find the bride for Isaac. So his response is to bow down. So the same thing for us. We worship is our response to God. Our response to God with love, with fear, with trust, with faith, with obedience, and with service. So if worship is our response to God, then our response is also has to really based on our true knowledge about the living God. So from Psalm, when we learn Psalm and read it out loud, I will encourage you to read it out loud. Or if you can find some music to go with in English translation, there are meters to go with. And actually there is a scholar, he's a pastor, I forgot. I once saw he actually put all the psalms and I think he find the meters for the psalm and find a lot of music to go with the meter. So
There's
you
a
can see,
website.
it's called the C.
Yeah. See?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think I have.
Oh.
Let me show you. Yeah, I want to show you this because this is really good for you. Because I don't memorize in English, but if you recite in English, then you should know this.
Seabed Salter.
It's the C. Yeah. The seabed salter, right?
Yeah.
You have this one.
Really highly encourage you guys to look it up because music really, really helps listen.
It's called. It's not sure.
Oh, you
Don't
need
know
to
what.
plug in the HDMI. It's show
Okay.
it a little bit more.
I don't know, but yeah, that's the one.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know. It's just not sure.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, now you can see this one.
You guys can Google like Psalters, P-S-A-L-T-E-R. Some of it is like word for word. Some of it isn't quite as much, but it's really helpful for memorizing songs.
What is the website?
Songs.seedbed.com. I can email it to you guys.
Yeah, actually here, then you can go to is that tunes here? You see, we give you the meter but there's the sounds, I think it's right here. You see, you have all the sound here. So if you click the sound first, and then they give you, like these 4 music is actually feed the meter of the sound. So if you sing and you even play the music.
So they take they analyze the meter of the songs, and then they give you different options of popular music that you can sing the songs to.
Maybe someone can try to sing it. I cannot sing it. Yeah. So you see, it's very helpful for you to memorize it with music. But it will really helpful if you read out loud, because the music will compromise to the meter, so it cannot feel the feeling. You want to feel the feeling, it will be better just read out loud. Yeah, you have all the sounds here and goes with the meter because the translation.
I try not to change it, but sometimes it's a minor changes, so be aware.
Okay, you have that website already.
exact version, but it's like it's divided by the what is it, like the meters. So yeah, because it's like
Try your
split by
best to
original-
put it back into your own translation.
Huh?
Try your best to stick it back into your
You
own
can.
translation. Add a few more notes in somewhere.
Okay, any question? No? Okay, thank you. Then if you have a chance to come to our study tomorrow night, then we'll talk about Psalm 98. Thank you.
Thank you.